Hi, I'm Carla Adams. Tonight I'll be reading from my book, Ancestral River, A Spiritual Journey for the Living and the Dead, Chapter 16, Hierarchy. A few weeks later, my hypnotist read my questions for the oneness. Does hierarchy exist within the waiting place? Earth realm angels don't have power over us, but can an ancestor prevent others from transitioning? As I used all my senses to feel into the oneness, the answer came quickly. Ancestors who desire hierarchy during their life require hierarchy when they die. Just as with living people, some ancestors like to rule over others and exert their influence through control and manipulation, other ancestors feel powerless or want to be ruled over. But there's no hierarchy by the universe, only by individuals. They only have the power you give them. Later in meditation, I said to Universal Spirit, how can I help ancestors realize their power? And how can I help the living know they have spiritual rights? The next day, as I breathed in from above my head and into my heart, pockets of stuck energy cleared at each chakra as I exhaled. That's how spiritual rights were represented in every chakra. I tuned myself to activate and amplify my awareness of my spiritual rights. I invited my ancestors in the waiting place to activate their rights too, and I invited those in the oneness too, even though they knew their rights, because their intention could help empower the rest of us. Gabriel stood across the table, guiding my words and actions. Striking a fork to tune the crown chakra at the top of my head, I said, we have the right to live in the present moment. We have the right to know we are made of universal spirit and the right to receive our spiritual rights. When dissonance cleared, I held the fork at the third eye of the hologram. We have the right to use our whole mind in harmony and hear our spirits above the chatter of the mind. We have the right to receive the wisdom and knowledge of the universe. At the throat, I said, we have the right to express our spirits boldly above the confusion of the hierarchical mindset. We have the right to hear universal spirit speak to us and to receive the clarity we need to stand in those truths. I struck the fork at the heart. We have the right to know the love that universal spirit has for us, to know we are that love, and to receive that love. Moving to the solar plexus, I said, we have the right to claim our authority and power over the mindset of lack, fear, and control. We have the right to receive the power and support of the universe. Next was the sacral chakra. We have the right to create our own lives by listening to our spirits. We have the right to know our value as an integral part of universal spirit. I activated my fork at the tailbone, the root. We have the right to know that because all things are made of universal spirit, all things are good. We are always safe because we can never be separated from universal spirit. We have the right to live in the mindset of universal spirit, the mindset of abundance. The chakra at the bottom of the hologram central channel was at the ankles instead of a foot below the feet. My ancestors and I still often reacted in fight or flight, which reduced the voltage and size of our biofields. I moved it lower and grounded us to the energy deep below the earth. We have the right to know we are a connection between earth and sky. We have the right to connect with universal spirit. The chakra at the top of the channel needed to be moved out further too. We have the right to know we are a connection between the physical and spiritual. We have the right to connect with the oneness. Crystals placed on each of the energy centers of the hologram amplified energy flow in the channel and around the outer edge of the biofield. We have the right to protect our spirits and bodies from harmful frequencies used by hierarchical minds. tuning the chakra 15 to 20 inches below my hologram's feet, I said, we have the right to know we're spirit beings, individualized portions of universal spirit, and that our spirits are designed to lead the mind. Life purpose energy was 15 to 20 inches above the head. We have the right to receive everything the universe brings us good, instead of reacting in fight, flight, or freeze. We have the right to recognize when we are at this choice point. 40 inches above the crown was our soul's purpose. We have the right to choose to live as spirit beings. We have the right to choose to be all our spirits desire to be. The chakra just inside the hologram's outer edge was part of the light waves constantly connecting us to universal spirit, condensing to form the connective tissue in our bodies. We have the right to give and receive in harmony with the abundance of the universe. And last, I tuned the energy center just outside the hologram's outer edge. We have the right to know we came from the oneness and will return to the oneness. We have the right to fully express the desires of our spirits. I made swirls of figure eights throughout the biofield. We have the right to be masters of all our energy. We have the right to use the energy of the universe with every breath we take. From the solar plexus, I claimed our power. We have the right to know and claim our spiritual rights for the highest good of all. Completing the session, I said, we have the right to feel safe and secure in our rights. We give thanks, and so it is. After my ancestors transitioned, my guardian angel said, I'm with you to protect your spiritual rights, if you want them. I said, since every person is made of universal spirit, each person's spirit always wants their spiritual rights, don't they? Gabriel said, most people have forgotten that they are spirit beings and don't know they have these rights. From then on, when I tuned the restoration group, I included the universe and myself in the hologram and tuned our spiritual rights, broadcasting knowledge of those rights through the light waves to every being in the universe. During one friend's session, the pendulum showed me to clear stuck energy at the throat chakra. Her father, who had died several years earlier, came to transition. As I worked in her father's memories within her ancestral field, I heard him as a child yelling, "No, no!" He had been in a spiritual battle, unable to speak his truth during much of his life. Even now, something was trying to hold him back from transitioning. I held my tuning forks in the stuck energy of his struggle and said to him, if you want your spiritual rights, repeat them after me. One at a time, he claimed his rights, and soon he was free. In a later session, this same friend wanted to remove blocks within her that would help her ancestors transition. As my tuning fork pulled away negative energy that didn't belong to her, the energy was dense, the fork dissonant. She said, I haven't been feeling safe this week, but I don't know why. I used the pendulum. We're going to work in subconscious thought today. My fork vibrated at the outer edge of her ancestral field. A lot of your ancestors are outside my home, but they're not ready to transition. They're divided into two groups. Both groups are low voltage and standing in darkness, as if it's in the middle of the night, dressed in clothing from many eras. Both groups are angry. Those on the right don't want you to release the thought patterns that have kept you from moving forward in your life. And they don't want the ancestors on the left to know that they can join the oneness. The group on the left is hesitant. They don't know what they want. They're used to following orders and letting others decide for them. I stepped quietly across the room. The energy feels weird, like I'm walking through a house on tiptoe, trying not to wake people who are sleeping. Suddenly, a whirlwind of energy pushed me through the rest of the field. I returned with a different fork. The energy has shifted a bit. The ancestors are still gathered outside the window, and the ones on my right are still angry. But the anger of the ancestors on the left is starting to crumble. An independent thought is now part of their vibration. It feels like they're saying, I think maybe I might want to transition sometime. 2 months later, my friend was back for another session. Ancestors stood outside the window again. Of the ancestors from the group on the left, those who were being controlled, 12 were ready to transition. But they represented all of her ancestors who wanted to help her step into her power and be all she was meant to be. 144 transition. After the session, she said, I've worked with mediums and did other ancestral clearing before coming to you, but I've never had any contact with ancestors on my father's side. I said, we have the intention of spiritual restoration of your original blueprint and that of your ancestors. The spirits of our ancestors yearn for restoration, but like us, their minds often can't hear their spirits because they live in their old patterns of fear and control. Your ancestors in both groups seem to be involved with some kind of hierarchical leadership within the waiting place. Hierarchy has two sides, those who like to be ruled over and those who like to rule over others. But those wanting control only have the power we give them. The universe works on free choice. Another 2 months passed. The same friend came to her sessions feeling a heavy presence of ancestors from the hierarchy on her father's side. Sadness filled her ancestral edge. My spirit pleaded with them to listen to their spirit and join the oneness. I kept her informed as I worked. I've cleared pockets of stuck energy at ages 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. It felt like initiation rites into the hierarchy. Ancestors taught their descendants to die in awareness of their spirit and trained them to lead the hierarchy in the waiting place. Members in the waiting place met the living at the moment of death and escorted them to the group so they didn't change their minds. Energy trapped at their deaths was full of regrets and sadness too. In my friend's personal field, I cleared ancestral influence on both sides of her body. 45 from the hierarchy transitioned. A few days later, she sent a text. Yesterday, I couldn't breathe or catch my breath. I was afraid I'd have to call for help. I felt I was battling for my breath, fighting with good, beautiful, positive thoughts against something dark that was taking away my breath. At her next session, 18 ancestors from the hierarchical leadership transitioned with gratitude. They had a message for her. We're looking forward to the joy and abundance of the oneness. All we have ever known is the lack and control of hierarchy. The following week, she was still coughing, though she didn't have a cold. Immediately, I tuned her throat and sacral chakras, then her heart. I said, say yaw 3 times. It's the sound of an open heart. Her energy felt freer. Her father and grandfather came from the oneness to acknowledge her intention to help their ancestors. Intuition prompted me. Your ancestors were trained in hierarchy from a young age and were met at death to be taken into the hierarchy of the waiting place. They never fully expressed their own truth or love. Her ancestral field was full of ancestors who followed the fork to the vortex. As she gave a blessing, I heard a roar from where the ancestors were gathered. They reached out their arms with love and gratitude and spoke in unison. Yah!